In an attempt to strengthen our relationship, I made my mom my maid of honor nevertheless. She didn't attend my wedding, despised my friends, and wrecked my bachelorette party. To pay her phone expenses, she now only texts me. I went to Puerto Rico for a bachelorette weekend a few months ago. My mother and sister attended, along with 2 of my bridesmaids. In order to strengthen our relationship while we prepared for my wedding, I requested my mother to be the maid of honor. Having everyone get along and just enjoy themselves was my main objective. I should have realized that this would not end well. A few weeks before to my mother beginning to abuse every one of my friends who doubled as bridesmaids. One that was actually going on the trip caught her attention in particular. In the end, I covered the cost of my flight, as well as that of my mom and sister, to lessen the financial strain on my mother. My mother was supposed to cover the cost of her accommodation together with that of my sister. My friend asked if anyone could try to arrange something for me without involving me. As the bride, I should also mention that I organized the bachelorette vacation. My friend wanted to help as much as she could, so she called my mom after reaching out to her. My friend was going to be a big assistance on this trip, because she is truly from Puerto Rico. I was unaware of this call at the time. After speaking with my buddy that day, my mother contacted me at 3 in the morning to inform me that she had been watching everyone and everything instead of doing her maid of honor duties. Planning the bachelorette vacation is her responsibility as the maid of honor, she continued. This was a strange talk, but I agreed to it. Her willingness to assist me with the vacation finally made me feel better. Before the call ended, my mother told me not to inform my friend about what she had discussed with me, which I also found strange. My friend contacted me the following day to wish me a wonderful bachelorette party and to remind me that it is all about me. I told her my mom wanted to plan too, so they could collaborate, and she wanted to help me with the outings I wanted to go on. When I visited my mother the following day, she became very angry, accusing my friend of being disrespectful, and stating that she would not allow a tiny girl to rule her on this trip. It seemed as though my friend had a problem, and that she did not want to wear her ridiculous t-shirts. She became enraged, and told me she preferred to take an Uber rather than ride in the rental car with my friend. Her remarks are disrespectful to your friend. And I'll take care of this bitch ass. I became immediately stressed out about this. She claimed that, in addition to being rude and mentally ill, she didn't like my friend. After all, I gave my friend a call to ask if she could cancel the rental, and she informed me that she was unable to do so. I set up a group chat for everyone going on the trip, and my buddy started questioning why we were doing certain things and how pleased she was, which irritated my mom and sister right away. The things we would do in Puerto Rico were to be organized by my mother. Again, my friend is Puerto Rican, and she wouldn't allow her help or do anything herself. Let's go back to the bachelorette trip's first day. My mom's suitcase, which contained all of her toiletries, was gone when we got there. It was upsetting to her. Since our flight was early, I let everyone relax when we arrived at the hotel. I met up with my friend and my other friend in the lobby after my friend arrived a little later in the day. I asked my mother and sister to meet us downstairs so we could go with them to have dinner and replace the misplaced toiletries. My mother came downstairs as my 2 friends and I were waiting, and she stepped behind my Puerto Rican buddy, saying hello to her quietly enough for her not to hear. I considered it strange that she was seated on the lobby couch when I mentioned to her that my mom was standing behind and over her. She said hi as she turned around. My mother simply stated, "Okay, I'm going to go hang out with your friends" at that moment. She took off running. My sister remained silent. You could cut the tension in the air with a knife. Trust me when I say that the energy was so off. Something felt very wrong, so I asked my buddy what was going on with her and my mom. She claimed she didn't truly know her and couldn't figure out why. I made the decision to wait for my mom and sister to return by going to the bar with my pals. 5 minutes afterward, I receive a text from my mother saying, "I'm disappointed. Shame on you, you betrayed your family, and your sister and I are out of the wedding." In response, I answered that I didn't and inquired as to what the issue was. Then they stopped paying attention to me. I wanted my bachelorette not to be like this, so I broke down in tears. My friends took me out to supper in an attempt to lift my spirits. I made the decision to give things some time to settle and try to talk my mom and sister over in the morning. I went to my mom and sister's room and repeatedly knocked on their door, returning time and time again. I called all of them as well, but nobody picked up. I even waited in the lobby to see if I would encounter them, but I didn't. Later in the afternoon, I gave both of them another call, and my sister finally answered. I inquired as to their well-being and whether we might dismiss the incident and proceed with the plans. When I knocked earlier, I heard someone looking through the peephole, so I knew they were lying when they stated they were sleeping. I questioned them why they had not responded for hours. My sister informed me that they were having lunch and would not disclose their location, adding that they were not participating in any of the things I had planned to do. I had a bad feeling. Nothing that my mother had promised to do was ever planned. Even after calling and not getting a response, my buddy texted my mother to apologize for whatever my mom felt she had done. While my mom and sister were missing, my friend frantically tried to make the most of the remainder of the trip for me. My sister contacted me the day before we were to depart and head home to obtain their plane tickets, which I bought. I was furious as soon as I emailed it to them. As in the hotel where my sister was staying, my mother requested me to leave my credit card there and promised to reimburse me. Given that she is my mother, I genuinely believe she had no desire to reimburse me. They refused to listen to me the entire way and now insisted on getting their flight tickets. I made the decision to depart sooner and change my flight. I couldn't pretend that this was how I always sat on planes with my sister and mother. When my sister called to inquire if I was taking an Uber to the airport, I told her that I wasn't since I had another flight. When my mother did show up, she phoned me and said a lot of harsh things. My mother called me a liar, hung up on me, and said that I was always being unfaithful, misinterpreting things, overanalyzing things, and not caring about her or my sister. My acquaintance began telling me about her previous phone discussion with my mom. My mother had begged her not to tell me about the phone conversation, therefore she didn't want to out of respect for her. According to my acquaintance, my mother has been speaking negatively about me, my fiancé, his family, and the wedding I am organizing. My acquaintance was placed in this uncomfortable situation. My mother and sister have not spoken to me since that trip, and they did not attend my wedding. My sister texts me once a month to remind me to pay her and my mom's phone bills, and that's all. Comments have been removed. When your mom referred to your acquaintance as a little girl, I raised an eyebrow. Those are strong remarks coming from someone who supposedly need payment for their trip. Are you financially abandoning them? You are free to do so. Why should you give them love and care when they don't give it to you? Anomaly 19 op, I'm going to disconnect them. This phone bill scenario is the only thing that needs to be terminated. I am apprehensive about executing it as I believe it would lead to unnecessary confrontation. I got you, and I deleted. Inform them that, as of date, you will no longer be paying for their cell phone bills by text message or registered mail. Next, block them on social media and silence them on your phone in case they write something that could be used as proof. Invest in cameras for your home. If they knock on your door, don't answer it. If they get worse, call the police. If you're avoiding them, they can't possibly cause trouble. Anomaly 19 up. I appreciate the guidance. Outstanding _edition 1132. Your friend and you both gave it your best shot, but your horrible sister and possessions donor spoiled it. It's time to cut them off indefinitely. At least until you deceive yourself into believing it wasn't that horrible and forget how they treated you. However, since you are not related to them, cut them off for the time being and refuse to pay their phone bill. Why would you buy anything from them at all? I would say you are done with their garbage because you already paid for the trip and their hotel stay. Wonderful content, gorgeous grandmother. The bachelorette celebration was about you, not your mother, and your mother didn't care about it at all. Was there something I missed? Why would you even consider paying their phone bills? I have been performing Anomalous 19 op for 10 years, starting during my time in college. I had to take care of that when I lived with my mother and attended school. When I was in college, it really was difficult to do. She never reclaimed that obligation. Content fantastic highlight grandma. It's time to cease paying her bill, as suggested by others. Just let her know that since she completely destroyed your bachelorette trip, you will deduct the airfare for her and her sister. I hope you and your spouse have many years of happiness together, and that your wedding was everything you had hoped it would be minus the drama twins. Update. I appreciate all of your suggestions, analysis, and insight. In regards to my initial post, I wanted to provide an update. I haven't had any communication with my mother or sister yet. In the end, I had a new phone number and line. I informed my sister via text that I would no longer be covering my mother's or my sister's phone bill. After that, I disconnected that phone and started using my new one. Along with removing them from all social media, I blocked them. After I did that, my mother made the decision to show up and try to phone me at work, saying that she wanted to talk to me urgently. I informed my coworker that if she called, she should not answer my work phone line since I wouldn't be answering it, and there wasn't an emergency. She did not attempt to try again after that. I think she tried calling to threaten to make me pay their phone bill and to shame and guilt trip me, just like she did when I was on my bachelorette trip, but I refused to fall for it. In addition, I stopped my sister's Apple Music, which I know would make her very angry. Everything felt pleasant. Furthermore, I learned that my mother had unintentionally added her husband's phone installment plan to the account a year prior, which nearly drove me insane. Since it was an installment plan, and the total only increased by $35, I was unaware of it. Over time, that $35 a month adds up. I ended up having to pay $500 for it all in total before cutting everything off. Who, after all, pays for their husband's brand new iPhone 14 with their daughter? How can somebody comfortably do that to their own daughter while sitting there? I'll never get this. I made the decision to stop communicating with people 7 months ago. I can claim that there has been less drama and more calm in my life. It has strengthened our relationship, my spouse and I. I genuinely feel content and am beginning to revert to my former self. I was in a very bad position and had a terrible relationship with my parents and sister. My eyes have been opened by everything that transpired on that trip, and I am looking forward to greater things and making sure my bachelorette trip is done the proper way. Comments I could have written this Texas one. I'm in my 4th month of NC with my sister and mother. There is no drama and life is tranquil. You experienced problems with both anomaly 19 and up. Why did you decide that way? Texas prevailed. My sister, a fervent opponent of COVID, thinks Democrats hooked rape children to a machine so they could steal their adrenaline. Less than a stone. She refused to apologize and included family members in that online garbage. To me, it was the last straw. She is not allowed to be around my kids or family. Mother has been advocating for her keyboard-wielding daughter, who has been a sponge, for nearly 10 years. That's the truncated version, and I ought to have severed them 30 years prior. It would have made my life less awkward and more tranquil. Peter 095837. I promise never to spill the beans. Once you cut out terribly entitled and immensely entitled people, life can become easier and more tranquil. Prejudice and manipulation. Although I've never dealt with an entitled person before, I can't image how I would react. End of the day. Good for AP. Thumbelina 1234. Cutting off contact with my mother was the best choice I've ever made. I wish I had acted sooner, but it's better late than never. Guinnison thought that asking my mother to be the maid of honor would help strengthen our relationship as we prepared for my wedding. Oh, this is what told me that the remainder would end in a tire fire. Mabel erecto patronum, Waddles_BFF. Before this, Mum was acting like a complete pussy, so Oop requested her to be the Mo in the hopes that it would change her ways. Oh, I see. I had assumed that would strengthen our relationship, and it was the warning sign that indicated they weren't at all close. Watching Fern is like asking a stranger you meet on the train to be your maid of honor because you want to be friends with them, only less kind. Because his wife wanted an even wedding party, Willie Wade, one of my cousins, had a near-total stranger serve as a groomsman. While they were renting suits, a man was getting his kid measured for prom. My cousin struck up a conversation with him and extended an invitation to be a groomsman. Let's go on to the next tale. Narrative 2. On the day of my graduation, my fiancé screamed at me. A week prior, we called off our wedding and informed the guests that it was postponed due to a minor argument. He's pleading with me to get back together now. A week before our F30 wedding was scheduled to take place, my ex-fiancé, M30, decided to call it off. We live together for context and have been together for almost 6 years. In essence, what transpired was an intensified disagreement. We were on our way to my program's graduation, which is a smallish occasion attended by a few community college teachers and roughly 10 students. As we were getting ready that morning, I asked him if he would mind if I replaced the shirt he was wearing with one of his button-ups so we could take a good picture. I assured him that he really doesn't have to, but he became irritated and snapped, asking, "Why do I have to do things for others? I only wanted to inquire, but in the end, it's his decision." After he finally pushed the button, we arrived at the event. He was overjoyed for me and said everything went smoothly. But he was getting impatient as the traffic built up on his way home in the automobile, since the exit to that route was approaching. I suggested another route that I know saves some time. He was irritable with me regarding traffic, so I was a little put out that he didn't take it. I thus questioned why he declined it. He became really irate, accusing me of being impolite, and said he wasn't required to drive the direction I directed. In response, I said that I was only curious and that it didn't really matter which route he took, because he was the one experiencing traffic issues. He lost it, and said I was to fault for his outburst. I said I was sorry, and that I didn't mean to come across as nasty when we got home. I also mentioned that we should discuss instead of yelling because it never helps. Since it was the only time I listened to him, he essentially emphasized that an apology doesn't cure anything, and that he needs such things to stop happening in order for him to stop screaming at me. We spoke again a few hours later, at which point I apologized for the misunderstanding and he apologized for yelling. Even when we worked things out, I couldn't stop sobbing that night, because he yells at me so readily when he's angry. I was furious that he seemed to choose conflicts on a day that was so significant to me. To make matters worse, I never yell at him, or anybody else for that matter, because I find that to be a huge red flag. When he inquired why I was feeling depressed during breakfast the following morning, I assured him that everything was okay and that I was just thinking through what had happened the day before. I told him that I felt like my special day was kind of destroyed by arguments about topics we could have easily settled when he requested me to please share with him. He just flipped right away and became enraged once more. He accused me of starting the arguments, and when I told him that I didn't think it was fair to hold me responsible, he became even more irate and told me that he couldn't do this, that I wasn't a good communicator, and that he couldn't get married this way. I was absolutely stunned. I assumed, as I had many times before, that he was speaking from the heart. However, on this occasion, he really did wind up informing a few guests via bulk SMS that the wedding had been cancelled. I was so perplexed and shocked by how quickly. We got into an argument and had to part ways to go about our days. When we got back later that day, I asked him if calling everything off was really something he wanted, and he said with confidence that it was. What I perceived as an act of rage appeared to be reasonable to him. I tried to patch things up between us throughout the remainder of the evening and the following day, after many hours of discussion and a great deal of melancholy. He went on to say that this cancellation was my fault and that I don't communicate adequately. I attempted to provide some options, but he was adamant about calling it quits and splitting up. Before we cancel the venue, I asked if we could give it another day or two to be sure this is what he wants. Refusing, he requested that the suppliers and venue be cancelled right away. Thus we did. I performed some errands the following day and met up with my pal. It was a very difficult day, and I was devastated, still trying to process what was happening. He begged to speak when I got home and broke down in tears, saying he regretted all he had said in the previous few days, that he was not sincere. He was agitated and lacked clarity of thought. I repeatedly suggested couples treatment, and he stated he would begin therapy right away. In any case, he apologized a lot and kept asking whether or not he made a mistake, and if we could make things right. Sincerely, maybe it was harsh, but I was virtually certain that this regret would surface. I said, "Yeah, you fucked up big time. You took a snap decision that seriously damaged our relationship. From now, there's no turning back." He practically pleaded for another opportunity, but now that everything has been cancelled, my faith is completely destroyed. 2 days are expected to pass before the wedding. We can't plan everything again, and to be honest, I don't want to, right now. His aunt was meant to be on her way to our house to assist us with packing decorations. He has cancelled arrangements and broken up with me before when we disagreed. Everyone is assuring us that we can work things out, and that since we are obviously in love, this doesn't have to mean the end of our relationship. However, I'm not sure how. This wedding is over, and it took a great deal of time, money, and work to plan. More importantly, I am no longer able to trust him. Right now, I'm at a loss on what to do. I'm considering traveling alone, even though we were meant to go on our honeymoon immediately after. I'm simply doubting everything, but he asked if we could go together and use that time to make things right. I believe that I would rather go on a personal introspective journey. Should I take his word and begin couples counseling, or should I end this and go on with my life? We have shared many loving moments together over the years, and I adore him with all of my heart. Other than these kinds of things, we don't have any problems, but I'm not sure if we can truly recover from this one. Ideas? Suggestions? Remarks? He screams without warning. It's her fault if traffic annoys him. He gets upset if she offers a way home. When she answers his question about why she's depressed, he acts like a kid and just starts laughing. Then he has the gall to claim that she isn't speaking to him. There are 2 types of infidelity, to be exact: gaslighting and really putting your partner on fire like this pine cone. Take your honeymoon alone, away from him. Alternately, send him on it and make use of the time to pack and relocate. It is not worth battling for this person. You've just been handed a pass to avoid going to jail. Grab it and bolt. When you fight, cuteness, violence, he ends the relationship. That isn't wholesome or steady. I would advise ending the relationship and starting a new one with someone who won't ruin it every time you have a disagreement. Once you move on, you'll be astounded by how much more beneficial a good relationship is for you. Update: I want to thank everyone for their support and remarks. He expressed his sincere regret for all that had happened and offered to refund the location so that the wedding could still go place that day. Additionally, if I still want to, he offered to start couples counseling right now, and right after we are married. To make things right, he volunteered to accompany her on the trip. Since the damage had already been done, I rejected to take everything and made the decision to go on the honeymoon alone while he packed everything. While we break up, he will begin his own therapeutic path. We still love each other, so this hurts so much, and I'm not sure what comes next. In order to address his impulsive actions when he is agitated, he plans to work on his mental health. He also came to the realization that the main problem wasn't a communication breakdown, but rather how his own confidence was under threat. Although I respect his candor, I don't understand how what transpired can be forgiven. I'm not sure if I should pursue couples counseling because he seems sincere about splitting up. Remarks: Sfute. Proceed. Count your blessings for avoiding marriage to this individual. As a strict rule, a guy isn't suitable for a husband if he loses his cool for no apparent reason and walks away, breaks up with you, or texts guests to cancel a wedding. Before you've even finished talking about it. He spared you a great deal of suffering. Proceed. 926 is the choice intention. Give up. He acts in a way that is intended to cause you pain or sadness. I'm not sure where his anger is coming from, but to be honest, he has to address it. If you stay, he will purposefully harm you in the future. He is unsuitable for marriage. If you have children, this conduct will only get worse, so he shouldn't be their father. Airport 775 in real life. In a good relationship, there should be open communication, honesty, respect, and trust. You say, I can't trust him anymore to start. Your statements seem to be accurate. Love is insufficient. You're right, he needs assistance, and it's probably best to provide it free from the added strain of a romantic relationship. A protracted hiatus of, say, 6 months to demonstrate his ability to work on himself, make objectives, etc. At the very least, stop getting yelled at. You have the option to choose that as well.